Hey Luke, how you doing?
Fine, Lorelai. How about yourself?
Good. I was wondering if maybe you'd want to go to the farmer's market with me tonight.
And why would I want to do that, Lorelai?
I just thought it would be a fun way to spend time together. Maybe go ice skating?
I got a wall I got to knock out and rebuild. In this restaurant that live in and work in.
How about just a movie?
I hate movies, Lorelai.
Okay. Always good talking with you, Luke.
Where's that wall?
This week we're Luke and Lorelai from Gilmore Girls talking about being afraid to love again. If you watched the show, you know that they had a little back and forth thing going on for quite a while. They watched each other go through relationships and they'd be sad because it wasn't them, but then they were each afraid to commit to each other until finally they did. It was a long go. We had to watch them for a while. What do you think they were afraid of? What are you afraid of? What were we afraid of? And how did we overcome these fears in falling in love again? That's today's topic.
When we are young and falling in love, we don't have a lot of baggage to take with us. We're starry eyed and hopeful for the future, no matter what that future may look like. We have no idea what we're getting into. We really don't. 20 or so years later, things look a lot different.
We know there are going to be pitfalls, risks, personal issues, career challenges, and possibly relocating even to a new area. Our bags are filled with all kinds of goodies and worries and stresses and insecurities and damage and all kinds of good stuff. We've talked about this in previous episodes. So now we drag our suitcases full of these things into a new relationship and we unpack them under some vulnerability, and potential rejection is there, and rejection feels terrible at any age. So we're going to talk a little bit today about what we're afraid of and how we can overcome these fears and how God can help us move through this.
Fear can cause you to miss out on an amazing opportunity. Fear can't hurt you, but fear can hinder you and perhaps cost you something that would really have been an amazing journey. 1 Corinthians 13:4. Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud. It does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. That's a big one, guys. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres.
We're going to just kind of run down the list about some common fears that we felt and that we've seen other people struggle with as they move forward in love. One is being emotionally vulnerable that can lead to disappointment or even added trauma if you've been through a devastating divorce or split. Or exposing our experiences to someone new might be used against us or frame us in a light that we don't want to be seen in. If we show our weaknesses, maybe that person will think we're just really weak. That list can get pretty long, actually. Maybe you're afraid of hurting someone else so that you won't be enough. I have no idea what that feels like, to not feel like I'm enough. I think that's a pretty common feeling for people. You might be scared of losing them like you lost your last partner. You could be afraid of making the same mistakes that you did in the last relationship. It's possible that you're afraid that the other person isn't showing you their real self, or that you haven't been showing your genuine self, and now you feel that you have to keep up some kind of fake mask to keep the relationship going. A big one is being afraid of intimacy with a new partner. We've talked about that one. You might be afraid that your life will change for the better or possibly the worse. What if someone else isn't going to understand your grief journey? Could be that you feel pressured to get into another relationship by friends or family, or that you feel that you're expected to love again by society. Because people tell you, well, it's been enough time. I got a friend I want you to meet. You should be moving on. And we know for certain that nobody gets to decide when that is for you. This was probably my biggest fear. You're afraid that the new relationship doesn't feel real and will change for the worse at some point in the future.
Waiting for the other shoe to drop.
I was waiting for a shoe, a boot, a slipper, a motorcycle boot. Something was going to fall. Something was going to happen that this little great relationship I was in was going to turn into what I had been used to in the past 25 years. So that's quite a list. Can you overcome these things? Sure. Is it going to be easy?
No, Lorelai, it's not.
It's not going to be easy. It's going to take a lot of work.
So, real quick, let's touch on societal expectations. I'm not sure that gets, it doesn't take the beating it should take. With a stick, with a crowbar, with an boat oar, I don't care. When did we figure out, if you will, that society gets to dictate how we handle our personal relationships within the family unit, our close friends? This world today with social media and cancel culture and all the nonsense. When did we let somebody else begin to dictate to us how we live in our relationship? Why did that happen? That should never exist.
So people are told that they're moving too fast into a new relationship, that they haven't properly grieved the loss of whatever the last relationship was, whether it was through divorce or death. You're moving too fast. You might make some mistakes. You're not seeing things clearly. You haven't prepared your heart. You haven't grieved enough. You haven't grieved appropriately. Or then there's the flip side. Did you feel pressure to move on? Did you have friends that were like, well, it's been a year, Luke, been a year. You should move on.
No, but only because anybody that knows me knows better than to do something like that, to get a snootful.
Oh, okay. So did you feel society was trying to move you in that direction?
No, I try to ignore society as much as I possibly can.
That's true. You do. You are a lot like Luke. Although I think he eats healthier.
What? You might.
Pretty sure. Although he doesn't drink coffee, so that's a huge difference right there.
Something wrong with him then.
I have a story to reflect some of our experiences. I very much guarded my heart after my divorce. I was not going to get back into a relationship, and trusting somebody else was going to take Herculean efforts to move me in a direction of even thinking about holding hands with somebody. I was not at all interested in putting myself out there, and did not trust myself to make those decisions. So Luke and I were friends, and we had great, open, and honest conversations. He was moving forward with some friendships that could potentially have been romantic relationships. Is that fair to say?
No.
Oh, come on. Be honest.
No.
Were there other people that wanted you to be romantic about them, but you didn't want to be romantic with them?
Perhaps.
Okay, yes, there
but
was.
Not from my side.
Right. But from an outsider's point of view, my point of view, it was clear that you were going to move forward into a relationship and it wasn't going to be with me. And in my head, I was thinking that was fine. Just do you. I don't want to be in a relationship with anybody. Certainly not you, right?
Correct.
You were the embodiment of everything I had just walked away from. You were self-proclaimed a control freak and mean and not a nice person in your previous first 13 years.
The first iteration of Luke was not good.
But you admitted that you had fixed that and that the new Luke was warm and fuzzy.
More importantly, God fixed that.
Right. But I certainly was not going to walk back into that situation. And I remember sitting at the park, and I don't think I saw you with anyone, or maybe it was a text message I got from you that you were with another person at a party and you were going to maybe be there overnight, and there was a part of my heart that broke wide open. And I realized I had way bigger feelings for you than I had been admitting. And that was a wake-up call for me to maybe look at being okay with falling for you. It took something pretty extraordinary. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I realized I was probably feeling a little mushier about you than I had admitted to.
It must be the hairdo.
It's definitely the hairdo. Yeah. Okay. So let's review a little bit how we can get past some of our fears. There's no shame in admitting that you're afraid, that you're not ready to love again. And it's absolutely okay to just seek a more casual arrangement with a potential partner. It doesn't mean you have to immediately move into a loving relationship with that person. There's a huge difference between knowing that you want to pursue a connection with another person or just not wanting to be alone. If you're just seeking after somebody because you don't want to be alone, you're probably going to fall into some big traps.
Get a dog.
As with every other aspect of a relationship, the most important thing you can ever do is communicate with your partner. You won't know each other's capabilities, insecurities, and boundaries unless you discuss them honestly, right?
Correct.
Is that all you're going to communicate?
Negative.
Once you're both aware of everything that the other person is feeling or worrying about, then you can take steps to sort the issues out. Negotiate these issues together, and you'll have a greater idea of where you can meet halfway.
Consider how you would behave with someone who you were strictly friends with, how you would treat them in a given scenario, and just try to play a few out in your head. And I'm going to challenge you to perhaps think about something that a friend might do that might twist your tail feathers a little bit. How would you behave with that individual? Now consider that same scenario with someone who you love, your best friend, who you are in a relationship with and or have married. That behavior, the way you treat your best friend, needs to be about 10 million times better than the way you treated just your friend. It's very important that you choose what upsets you, what doesn't upset you. You should not be easily angered over, most of the time you're not even going to remember what twisted your tail feathers.
Grace is the word. Lots and lots and lots of grace. Lots of grace.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow it's probably not going to make any difference whatsoever.
Most of the people I've challenged with that, I've caught them arguing. I'll ask them what they're arguing about, and they'll give me some fakakta story about some nonsense. And a month later, I will ask them, what was it you were fighting about that day? I have yet to have a couple go, oh yeah, it was this. It's always, oh, I don't remember. Then it wasn't worth fighting about.
Right, talk it out.
Communicate. It's okay to have differences in opinion. It's okay to not see the world through the same lens. In fact, it's almost important that you don't. That's how we help each other grow.
It's true. So we're going to give you some tips to moving forward that we tried. We still try. It's not like we got this thing completely figured out.
On that list is one of those don't miss the cues.
No, but you just added it to the list. You want to talk more about that?
If you're in a relationship with somebody that you have feelings for, but like Luke and Lorelai, two ships passing in the night, it's important if one of you is blowing your horn that the other one goes, oh, hark, what is that? Let's find out what's going on. Don't miss the cues because you're afraid. Fearing rejection is real, but at the same time, what are you going to miss?
That's true. That's good stuff. So going into that fear cycle, when you feel afraid, step back and face that fear head on. That fear is generally not associated with the situation. It's usually some little piece of luggage that got stuck in the carousel somewhere that you forgot to pick up some point and dealt with. So sit down with it and find out if you can dial in what that fear is really saying. Oh, well, this actually means I'm afraid that I'm going to be abandoned, or I'm afraid I won't be heard. Once you've identified it, a lot of that fear goes away, and you can rationally have a conversation with that person and say, this action made me feel this way, not you made me feel this way. I felt this way because of this action. There's a huge difference in those two things. We all have that voice that runs I do anyway, has a continual conversation in my head. And sometimes it's really smart, but most of the time it's really not very smart. Most of the time it's a lot of nonsense. Sometimes it's hilarious. Sometimes I'll do a whole stand-up routine in my head. But if the voice in your head is telling you to pull away, is it really telling you the truth? It could just be distracting you from feeling vulnerable. It could be making up all kinds of stories in there because you don't want to feel exposed or weak or re-traumatized from something.
It is amazing what people will do to avoid being taken out of their comfort zone.
Ask yourself if your life seems better or not with this new person around you. A lot of times life comes at us with weird little circumstances, or sometimes big ones, like we got to start a new job, or we've got to move, or we've got to have somebody move in with us, or whatever. Those things are not permanent. I think if there's one really huge valuable thing that I've gained from this relationship is, and I gained it far before we got married, is this is just a season. Whatever we're going through is not going to last forever.
That's true. It's amazing the difference a year can make.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's economic or emotional or situational or whatever. It's not forever.
As I've said, love is comprised of primarily trust and respect. There are other components, but those are the biggies. And without both of them, you do not have love. Communication can only happen when there's trust and respect. If I look at you as my spouse, someone whom I own, a means to an end, why would I bother conversing with you? Why would I bother communicating with you in any way I'm just going to do what I want and you're just going to accept it. But that sounds like a great relationship.
Let me tell you what happened to the last person I was in a relationship with that had that attitude. There's an X in front of his name. And make peace with the risk of losing again. Fully commit to love right now rather than the preoccupation with the someday. I think that's a really valuable piece of advice. If I get into this relationship and it doesn't work out, it may not, but if you don't take the risk, you may never find out. You're always saying don't bother or don't borrow trouble.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't fill in the blank before you even know what the situation is.
Right.
Yeah. The more fully that you love, the more deeply that you're going to grieve when you lose someone that we love. But then it's also more likely that you're going to be able to love wholeheartedly again. I love that cycle, that picture. It's not a detriment that you loved so much the person that's gone that it just physically hurts you. It means that you're an amazing human being and you have the capability of bringing that to somebody else.
Yeah, your capacity to love is not limited.
Right. So, yeah, falling in love again is extremely scary, but the rewards are way bigger than any fears that you might have.
And if I'm going to enter into a new relationship, I have to accept, and should willingly accept that there's a new person in my orbit and there's going to be truckloads of respect dumped on this person. If I can't do that, then I shouldn't be in that relationship. I recently told some friends, we were talking about accountability, and accountability is great having an accountability partner, but if I'm not accountable to myself, I'm certainly not going to be accountable to somebody else. If I'm not honest with myself in this new relationship and truly give myself to the relationship, how is that going to work?
You're just going to have a shallow something that's not going to last. We want it to last. We're in it. We're in it to win it. There is no better risk than love.
Yeah, the return is phenomenal.
Yeah. Forget the stock market. So join us next time when we'll talk about communication styles. You say tomato, I say avocado. We're going to hear from Leonard and Penny from the Big Bang Theory, and they'll chime in with their tips on keeping the lines of communication open. Until then, lean on God to bring you into his love, and don't be afraid to share that with those around you. Who knows? It might just work out after all.
It's great advice, Lorelei.
So do you want to go do something with me, Luke?
Yeah. Let me take my apron off.
Put the hammer down. You're not going to need that wall.
Perfect. Penny, do you prefer M theory or string theory?
I prefer peanut butter M&Ms over regular M&Ms. Is that what you mean?
Sure.